Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto was adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Naruto was leading Konohamaru through to the park and they talked on the way there. He got to learn a bit more about Konohamaru on the way there. Apparently he was an only child and liked a lot of things, although the boy hadn't had ramen yet, so he resolved to fix that mistake as soon as possible. Konohamaru also learned a few things, like that Naruto knew his uncle Asuma well from Naruto's father and the Hatake poker games. The two were having some fun talking when they arrived at the park and Naruto started to look for Hinata. He didn't have to look far as he saw Hinata pushing her little sister on a swing set. The usually reserved little sister was actually smiling. Hanabi usually acted much like a typical Hyuga inside the compound, but when Hinata got her outside to play, she could just be a little kid again. He also saw that Hinata wasn't alone this time, as Neji was there as well, most likely as the bodyguard for the main house members. Although he looked impassive there with his arms crossed just watching, Naruto could tell that he was enjoying the sight of his cousins playing. "Hey Hinata-chan, Hanabi-chan, Neji." Naruto called out to them all and they looked. Neji nodded to him, as Hanabi gave a small wave while Hinata smiled and gave a timid little wave with a blush. They walked up and Naruto smiled at him. "Hey guys, I'd like you to meet Konohamaru Sarutobi." "Konohamaru, this is Hinata, Hanabi and Neji Hyuga." "Hey, nice to meet you guys." Konohamaru smiled behind his scarf. "Sarutobi," Neji said, thinking about that name. "Are you related to the Hokage?" Konohamaru stiffened a little and his shoulders dropped. He really didn't want him to know about that right off the bat. Now he could already seeing them being nice to him just because he was the Hokage's grandson. He hated that, like how the parents of other kids made the kids try to be friends with him even if they didn't like him just because they could get close to the Sarutobi family. He found that out pretty fast and put a stop to it by usually acting like a jerk so they would leave him alone. Although there were at least two kids that he knew at school that seemed okay, but only time would tell with them. Naruto saw the downcast look on the boy's face and had a feeling what he was feeling. Yeah, he's the grandson of the old man, but he hates being called honorable grandson and all that crap. Hinata came forward and bent down to face the boy and gave him a kind smile. The kid looked up at the girl and he had to admit she looked really friendly and kind of pretty too. "Don't worry, we know what that's like, GG. Growing up in the Hyuga clan, Hanabi and myself are the daughters of the leader of our clan, so I know what that is like." Konohamaru smiled at the girl. It wasn't often that he could find someone that seemed to know what it was like. He turned to see that the girl on the swings had jumped off and was walking up to him. She looked kind of like her older sister, only with longer hair. She seemed to be looking at him oddly and it was making him a little nervous until the girl looked up at Naruto with a glint of humor on her pearl-like eyes. "Are you brainwashing little kids now to be like you, Naruto Nizan?" Hanabi smirked a little. "What? Why do you say that?" Naruto demanded. "He looks a bit like you with his scarf covering his face," she pointed out. "Is there anything wrong with that?" Naruto said. Hanabi looked at Konohamaru and tilted her head a bit. After a moment she shook her head. "No, nothing wrong with it." Konohamaru wasn't sure why, but he felt his cheeks heat up a bit from the girl looking at him like that and saying it. He didn't know why, but she seemed to be more confident than her older sister, that was for sure. Hinata giggled at the sight. I'm remembering when Naruto-kun and I met." Naruto thought about it and smiled brightly. "Oh yeah, that was one of the best days ever. I made the first real friend that day." Naruto's eyes dimmed a bit as he looked a bit sad. "Your mother was there that day. I remember you hiding behind her." Hinata had on a sad smile. Although it had been a few years, it still hurt that her mother was no longer living and she looked to see her younger sister. She barely even got to know their mother since she had been so young. Most of the images she knew were from pictures that Hinata kept safe. She saw Neji look away and knew that he too felt the loss. Her mother had always been kind to the Branch family and to her uncle and cousin as well. Konohamaru noticed the sudden drop in the group and he had to guess that it had something to do with their mother. He didn't want to ask since it looked like a painful thing. He would save that for later. Instead he decided to break everyone out of this. He grabbed Hanabi's hand since she was closest and started to quickly move to a jungle gym set in a sphere. "Come on, let's go and play. This is a park and parks are where you're supposed to have fun." The boy said as Hanabi was surprised by the boy and went with him so she didn't trip or be dragged. Now that Hinata saw that, she fell into giggles again, smiling. That was exactly like how Naruto got her to play all those years ago. She cast a look to Naruto and saw him smiling behind his mask at the scene, and she guessed that he was remembering the same moment too. Naruto broke out of his thoughts as he remembered something that he meant to ask Neji the next time he saw him. "Oh Neji, can you do me a favor?" Neji raised an eyebrow since he wasn't sure if this was the normal one of like the time a few years ago while still in the academy. He had ran into Neji and asked him to hold something for him and then ran off. It turned out to be a paint can, and that was when one of the teachers caught up, and as it turns out, Naruto had tried to make a piece of artwork in the teacher's lounge. That hadn't been a good day for Neji, although he did get Naruto back for that later, as after yet another prank he was running by Neji, so he just tripped the boy. Naruto had been caught and glared at the Hyuga boy but later grinned at him. Apparently he knew what Neji had done and why, and accepted it. Although ever since then he was wary of whenever Naruto said, "Can you do me a favor?" from that point on, like he was at this point in time. "Oh come on, I just wanted you to ask Lee if he wants a rematch with me sometime." Naruto sighed, seeing the look on the boy's face. Neji nodded his head. "Sure, he has been looking forward to it, but don't you dare use that jutsu you used on him again. Despite that, Guy-sensei would disapprove. You remember what Tenten did, right?" Naruto paled, remembering the angry girl with all the really sharp weapons and had killer aim, literally, on his ass after that. Thankfully she wasn't angry anymore, but he learned that all women, especially kunoichi, were extremely dangerous when angry. "Oh trust me, I got a new move that will lay him out, and I didn't feel right winning that way. It was a cheap shot and I want to beat him fair and square," Naruto told him. Good, although he's been training extra hard and was trying to train while blindfolded, Neji told him, and seeing the expressions on both Naruto and Hinata's face he sighed. It was Guy-sensei's idea to overcome the sexy jutsu. He figured if Lee could fight without seeing it, then it wouldn't work. Naruto thought about that and smacked his head. "Oh man, I never thought of that. If someone can fight without seeing, it's damn useless. That's pretty smart of them." Hinata and Neji sweat dropped at that statement, as they couldn't believe that he actually agreed to that. Meanwhile, Konohamaru and Hanabi were on the playground equipment as they watched the older kids. "Hey Hanabi, is your sister okay? She stutters a lot and she seems to blush a lot around Naruto Nizan." Hanabi nodded her head. She has a huge crush on him, but he doesn't know and she's too afraid to tell him. "Oh man, how long has that been going on?" She sighed. "For years, as long as I can remember. Now that I think about it, she's always been like that around him." "Really? How long have you known Naruto?" "I only just met him today." Hanabi smiled as she couldn't remember a time she hadn't known him. "All my life. He and my sister have been friends since before I was born, and he always comes over and is the only non-Hyuga who can just come and go from out compound. He's like an older brother. A bit goofy and stuff, but he's always been fun." Konohamaru smiled at that. "That's cool. So is it because he's such good friends with your sister that he can just come and go?" Hanabi shook her head. "Well, not all of it. Before I was born, a cloud ninja tried to kidnap my sister and might have gotten away with it, but Naruto Nizan stumbled onto it and beat the ninja." Konohamaru looked back quickly to the three older kids, looking at Naruto with new respect as he was joking around with the other two. Sure, he was a genin and stuff, but he didn't think he was strong enough to take on a real ninja when he was younger. Naruto must be really strong then. I've got to catch up then. I won't be left behind. He may make it to Hokage before me, but I will take over after him, and I promise to not take the easy way either. "So are him and your sister dating?" Konohamaru asked, seeing how the two were interacting. "Well, she really likes him and I know she would love to be his girlfriend, but she's too shy to do anything about it, and as for him, well, he's totally clueless about it." Konohamaru looked over, watching the two again, and he had to admit she seemed like a nice girl. "Would you want them to be together?" Hanabi nodded at once, not even needing to think about it. "Yeah, and if they got married, then he really would be my brother." She blushed a bit at that. She never told anyone that, and it just kind of slipped out, but it was true. She always thought that Naruto and Hinata would be great together, and having him as her brother-in-law would be great. He would be there all the time, and she knew it would make her sister totally happy in life too. "Well, let's help them out then." Konohamaru smiled broadly at her and she had to smile back. After that, they started to play some together as they made plans for getting Hinata and Naruto together, plus Hanabi, despite herself, was starting to have fun. There were no other kids her own age in the main branch, and the kids in the other branch stayed away from her, so she didn't have any kids her own age to play with. So meeting another kid her own age that didn't seem to care about her station in life, about her clan or anything. With him she was just another kid and she was growing to like this as well. She hoped to see more of Konohamaru. Elsewhere, Kakashi was reading his usual book as he was currently reading volume 2 of his beloved series. Walking through the streets of the village he somehow avoided all the people, carts and anything else in his way without looking. It was an odd sight to see at times for a man with only one eye, hence no depth perception, reading and still avoid everything and anything in his path. If it wasn't for the fact he would read out quietly to himself bits and pieces people wouldn't even think he was reading. He was just getting to a good part where the young lovers had just escaped from a band of enemies and were hiding out in a cave. They were wet from the rain so they had to let their clothing dry. He let out a perverted giggle as he knew where this was heading but he didn't dare skip ahead, it took the flavor out of things that way. He was just getting to where the girl was shyly blushing when he felt a large chakra signature overhead. He looked up and was surprised to see Jiraiya there up on a rooftop. So back in town, huh? Kakashi said with an eye smile. Well, I was making a report and was just about to leave. He dropped down to face the man. So how is the boy doing? Kakashi was wondering how long it would take for him to get to the point, but something seemed off to him. He seemed a bit more direct than usual. He decided to see where this was going and continued on as usual with the man. Naruto is doing great. He passed with high marks and the only one that seemed to give him a run for his money was Sasuke Uchiha. The two have a type of rivalry which seems to help push the other to new levels. I'm actually surprised at how advanced the boys are. The Toad-san nodded his head hearing this. Well, that's good. I know that Minato would be honored that you were teaching his boy. He noticed a bit of a pained look in Kakashi's eye, but it went as quickly as it came. He wasn't sure it was the mention of Minato or a reminder that Kakashi wasn't Naruto's biological father. In any case, he mentally shrugged as he thought of something. You know, I might be back for the Chunin exams, so if the boy is getting pretty far I might teach him a few things, maybe even get him to sign with the Toads. I was actually thinking of giving him the contract with the dogs fairly soon, Kakashi interjected. Jiraiya frowned a bit. I don't bad talk them, they are great summons for trackers, but Naruto will need something a bit more powerful to deal with things that are going to be ahead of him. When the truth gets out about his biological father, you can bet that a certain village would love to get their hands on his legacy. Plus there is something else, someone is trying to gather the tailed beasts and the people who carry them within. He said softly to him in a dark voice. Kakashi's eyes widened a bit then narrowed. Who are they? Still looking into it, but a few years ago it looked like my old teammate Orochimaru was part of them. That's how I stumbled upon the group while I was tracking him. Lost him for a bit, but it seems he quit the group, but I heard something disturbing about a member in the group. Who? Kakashi asked, keeping his voice low. Itachi Uchiha. That name alone was one that was never uttered, but everyone knew the name. Who could forget the man that killed one of Konoha's clans, even the clan that had helped forge the hidden village and only left one survivor? The fact that Itachi was involved worried Kakashi. He was good, but he wasn't sure he could match up to Itachi. Even though people called Kakashi a genius, Itachi took that to whole new levels. I'll have to plan for that and make sure that Naruto is ready, Kakashi muttered to himself. Hold on, don't forget his team, Kakashi, Jiraiya told him quickly. He has a team for a reason and they will most likely get caught up in this too, so you have to make sure they are all ready. Maybe teach them what you can to survive. Like what, my Chidori or Rasengan? Kakashi asked him. Only if they can handle it, but try to do things small and work from there. Kakashi nodded to himself, already making more and more plans. The groundwork would have to be established first, but after they got the basics down they would be able to train a lot harder too. Plus there was something else that he had been preparing Naruto for, but after what Jiraiya said he would have to modify things a bit. Oh well, it just meant more work, and although he liked to be lazy or appear that way when there was hard work to do, he could do it like none other. Hey Kakashi! Came a somewhat angry yell and both men turned to look to see a serious-looking Anko coming up to them. Anko, what's up? Kakashi asked, noticing Jiraiya leering at the special Jonin, and he wasn't sure how he felt about that. Anko was a close friend and he was a bit bothered by that. Well, I had an interesting experience at the hot springs today, she said, placing a hand on her hip. She failed to notice that Jiraiya paled a bit and started to sweat a little, trying not to be too noticed at the moment. You see, I just off a nasty little mission, so I thought that having a nice stop at the hot springs would be nice, and it was, until some old pervert and two perverted kids were peeking on the women. I didn't get a good look, but I heard one of the boys was wearing black and orange with a mask. And I was thinking, who do I know that fits that description? Kakashi sighed and hung his head. I have no idea what he was doing there, Anko, but I will find out, and trust me, the boy will be punished for it. Hey there, go easy on the kid, after all it might not have been his fault, Jiraiya spoke up. Anko looked at the man closely, taking a step forward. Wait a minute, the man they described was said to have long white spiky hair too. Jiraiya stiffened and started to look for a quick exit plan. Hot springs. There are hot springs here. When did they get put in? I'm usually off for long periods of time, so I guess that they could have been put in while I was away. Anko's eyes narrowed, not believing that for a second. Unless you've been gone for over 50 years, they have been here for a long time and everyone in the village knows about them. Oh. Yeah. He was starting to feel a little killer intent and looked to Kakashi. Hey, don't suppose you could get your girlfriend to calm down a bit? Girlfriend. Both of them said at that, and they looked at each other for a moment. Anko has been a good friend for years, Kakashi said to him. Yeah, Anko said, fighting off a blush. She really didn't want to seem girly in front of other male ninjas, but for a while now she had been entertaining the thought. Ever since she saw him without that mask, she couldn't help but think about that handsome face behind the mask. Really, I would have thought she was your type too, the old man teased the two younger ninjas. I mean, she's got a great figure, right? Kakashi was about to say something when he realized he wasn't sure what to say. On the one hand, he couldn't deny that she was definitely one of the best looking kaneki in the village, and she was pretty fun to hang out with. He had gone out, when Naruto was old enough, or he got a sitter, with other jonins to drink, and she could hold her own. She was pretty skilled, and with a bit more training she could one day make full jonin as well. He did like her hanging out, and Naruto really liked her as well. But on the other hand, if he admitted that he had looked at her and her body, how would she react to that? Anko noticed his hesitation on commenting and was annoyed by that, but she wasn't sure for what reason, so she gripped open her coat. What, you don't think this is a hot body? And you better be honest, because I work hard to get looking this good. Kakashi swore in his head this wasn't what he needed, although he couldn't help to take a look. She was very trim, she had an athletic build but kept her feminine form. All in all, she had the perfect kunoichi body. He was about to say something when he saw Jiraiya giggling and making notes, so he turned to glare at him. Do you mind? Not at all, keep it up, you two. He snickered but then froze as he felt two killing intents hitting him, and he slowly looked up from his notepad to see both ninja glaring at him. Kakashi cracked a knuckle while Anko took out one of her kunai. The older ninja gulped and gave a small innocent smile before bolting for the nearest gate out of the village, and he soon had a couple of angry ninjas on his tail as well. 1 week later. It had been a week, and so far Team 7 was just finished with a couple of D-ranked missions. They were just finishing up clearing up a lawn while Kakashi was reading one of his books. It had been a fairly simple week so far, some missions with a little training to see where everyone was in their skills. So far Sasuke and Naruto were very skilled, although Sakura was very smart. She was more book smart, and he was already trying to think of ways of improving her other skills. She wasn't so bad, at least while she had been friends with Naruto and the others. She had gone over and trained with Ino at times, so she had skills in fighting, but so far no Eustace of her own, at least yet. He was also thinking of a few surprises for his students. He had been thinking hard on how to teach all three and how to make this a real team. He thought back to his own days as a genin, with Naruto's father teaching him with Obito and Rin. He also had been thinking about the whole thing with Anko last week as well. So far they had been pleasant together, but there was something going on, like something going on under it all. He sighed. He hated this. Things were so much simpler, but he couldn't think of that now, at least not yet. He looked up to see everyone finished and snapped his book shut. All right, looks like we're all done here. Us. We did all the work. All he did was read again, Naruto muttered to the two others, who nodded slightly. Well, come on, before I report in for the team, I think it's time for you all to learn a new ninja skill, Kakashi said as he led them into their training area. When they got there, he could see Naruto excited as usually, although he would have to disappoint him this time. Alright, while I'm reporting in, I also have some things to look into. Naruto, I want you to teach them the tree walking exercise while I'm gone, Kakashi said. Naruto groaned. Oh, come on, Pops, I already know this. I mean, sure, I don't think they know, but I learned this while in the academy. Why can't you teach me something while they're learning this? Naruto, you are in a team and as such this is a team exercise as well as training. Kakashi then I smiled. Besides they could use your help with this advanced chakra control exercise too, and if you really want try to do it on water once they got the hang of it. Wait, you can do it on water too? Naruto said excited. Kakashi nodded, although what he forgot to tell him was that you had to use your chakra differently. Oh well, not trying to get wet was a nice way to motivate him to learn faster. Alright, you can count on me. Naruto said happily. Meanwhile the other two were wondering just what was going on. Sakura was eager to learn something new while Sasuke was a little irritated that Naruto seemed to know something that he didn't, and that meant that he would have to train even harder to surpass him in whatever it was that they were going to see. As soon as Kakashi left, Naruto led him over to a few trees. Okay, so what's so special that you of all people are supposed to teach us? Sasuke asked with his arms crossed over his chest. Naruto smiled under his mask. It felt so good that he was going to show up Sasuke. The guy always seemed to know everything in school and it was great to show him something for a change. Basically we're going to climb the trees but using only our feet. What? You can't do that, can you? Sakura asked him wide-eyed, although Sasuke gave a small grunt that he wasn't sure he believed it either. Sure you can, Sakura-chan, all you got to do is use chakra in your feet to stick on it like this. Naruto make a hand seal and concentrated. His control was still not that great, but it was miles ahead where it originally had been thanks to his dad making him do this exercise among others all the time. He concentrated and started to walk up the tree. He went all the way up to a very high branch and then jumped onto it. See, nothing to it, he shouted out to them. Sasuke grunted and made the same seal and went to do the exact same thing, only he only made it up one step before falling onto his back, and he looked up annoyed at a laughing Naruto. I guess I forgot to mention that you need a set amount too much and you won't stick in too much and you can launch yourself right off the tree, Naruto laughed. And I bet you know that firsthand too. Sasuke shouted up at him as Naruto stopped laughing and sweat dropped, scratching the back of his head. It was only a few times, he muttered to himself, although in truth it had been a lot of times before he got the hang of it. So how are you doing, Sakura-chan? Where did she go? Naruto looked at the bottom but he didn't see her anywhere. Right here, Naruto, Sakura's voice said next to him, making the boy jump and nearly fall off the branch. He caught himself and saw Sakura there sitting on the branch, giggling at how he looked, clinging to the trunk of the tree. How did you get up here? He asked, shocked that she was up here. I did what you did, it's not very hard, she told him. But it took me days to do this and you do it in one turn. I can't believe you're so good at this, your chakra control had got to be amazing, he said to her. Sakura blushed at his compliment. She knew that the boys were better in a lot of things, so finally finding something that she surpassed them both in felt really good to her. Already her inner self was already doing cheers in her favor as well. Sasuke meanwhile was a little angry, although he wasn't sure if it was against himself or not. He only picked himself up and decided to train even harder. There was no way he would be left behind. He had a long way to go to reach his goal of avenging his family and clan, and he would be the best there was in order to face him. The three trained a lot that day. Naruto had Sakura run up and down the tree, saying it was a good way to gain more chakra in your system, and if Sasuke asked her for any advice, he was still trying. Although Naruto had to admit the other boy was doing better than he had when he started this. He went to a small pond in the area and tried water walking and ended up getting entirely wet for the entire time and only got to the point where he was standing on the water, but his feet would keep sinking up to his ankles and any movement caused him to lose focus and fall in again. By the end of the day, Sasuke had got halfway up the tree. Sakura was dead tired and could barely move, and Naruto looked like he spent the day in a rainstorm. It was a very amusing sight when Kakashi returned at the end of the day to tell them training was over for the day, but so far he could already see some improvements in his young team and he could wait until tomorrow when they started with weights on for their physical training. It had been a busy couple of weeks. Every day Team 7 usually had at least one or two D-ranked mission and then trained after it. They had mastered tree walking and were learning more taijutsu skills lately as well. They were also getting used to the weights that Kakashi had put on them. He made them wear them the entire day, even during the missions, until they got used to them. The three genin were usually very tired at the end of the day because of it, but Naruto usually was the one that bounced back first thanks to his little guest in his stomach healing him. They all had been working hard and Kakashi was proud of how they were doing. Of course there were the little bumps along the way, such as Naruto and Sasuke kept getting in each other's faces. Sakura usually played peacekeeper but at times also had to rein in Naruto as well. It reminded him a lot of his own team when he was their age. Sasuke reminded him so much of himself at that age. Sakura was a lot like Rin, and Naruto was like Obito, only he wasn't late like he was all the time. It seemed that fate had played some sort of joke on Kakashi, but damn it if he could see the punchline to it. They had just finished catching that cat Tora for the third time. The cat seemed to be okay in Sakura's hands, although Naruto was covered in scratches again. It happened all the time, and some animals didn't like Naruto, most likely because of what was inside of him, most likely made him uneasy. They were currently standing in front of the Hokage waiting for what he had to say. He noticed that Naruto was a bit tense for some reason, and he could already sense him about to blow up about something. He thought of how he could prevent it, but then again it was hard to prevent Naruto from doing what he wanted. Now then, that's at least 14 missions you've done, and I do have a few others here that you could do as well, the Hokage said, looking over the team's file. There are a few more D-ranked missions here as well that you could do for the rest of the week. No way. Naruto shouted out, finally losing his patience. We've been doing these chores for 2 weeks and I want to put all the training to the tests. We ninjas shouldn't be on actual missions or something. I mean, I'll never get to be Hokage if all we do are these crappy things. Naruto. Sakura shouted out at him, giving him a small glare. She just didn't understand why he couldn't just act respectful to others. He mouthed off to everyone, even the Hokage of all people. She sighed, seeing that he calmed down but still had that determined look in his eyes. Although I hate to agree with the masked shorty, I think he makes a point, Sasuke said. Naruto was torn between thanking him and shouted back at him for the short joke. It wasn't his fault, he was the shortest in his class, he just hadn't hit his growth spurt yet. He noticed his dad sigh with his hands in his pocket. Kakashi, what do you think? After all, you did request this team for a certain reasons, if I remember. The Hokage smiled at him. Kakashi winced, knowing what the Hokage was referring to. He had made the claim of the kind of team that he was making, so he now figured that he was now being called upon to prove some results. He was wondering if this was the Hokage's way of testing the team, or it might be pressure from certain members about how far the last of the Uchiha was progressing. On the one hand, he wanted to keep the kids safe until they were trained a bit more, but he couldn't keep them from danger forever. There was also the fact that both the boys were eager for action, and there was something else that he had been thinking about. Most of the so-called accidents had stopped since Naruto became a genin. After all, the death of a shinobi of the village would be looked into by ABNU after all, but still maybe a mission out of the village for a time would do them a world of good. Naruto had never been outside of the village, and he wasn't sure about the other two either. What exactly do you have in mind, Hokage-sama? Kakashi asked him. Well, there is a rank C mission, mainly it's border patrol along the northern border, as we've been keeping reports of a bandit raiders. It's a small group from the sounds of it, but last week they attacked a pay convoy of the Fire Lord, and so he would like them taken care of before the next convoy goes out. The Hokage said to them. All right, that sounds like an awesome mission, we're on it. Naruto shouted in joy at his first real mission. Naruto, you don't get to say what missions we take, Sakura said, exasperated with him. Kakashi sighed, knowing that if he didn't accept this, Naruto would be impossible to live with until they get another mission like this. Plus, it was fairly simple, so maybe things wouldn't be so bad after all these types of missions. You just went out and patrolled, and maybe even the bandits had moved on. They could go out, maybe see nothing, he could get them some training on the side and come back, and at the worst they would just run into some bandits, and he was fairly sure they could handle a ragtag group like that. Alright, we'll take the mission, Kakashi said with a shrug, which of course Naruto was delighted to hear. It took a few hours, but they had to gather up supplies. Naruto kept asking his dad what he thought he should bring, as the boy was excited. It was his first real mission, and he was leaving the area of the village for the first time in his life. He had heard and read all about other countries and what the fire country was like, so this would be great for him to see it in person. He finally managed to pack his backpack with the necessities that he would need for a week in the field. He took a few extra supplies just in case they were going to spend more time out there as well. Come on, Dad, I want to go and you're not making us late. Naruto said, literally dragging his father out the door. Calm down, kid, and why do you assume we're going to be late? He asked in that innocent voice as he got a glare from Naruto, making him sweat drop a bit. Never mind. They made it to the main gate on time for once, which was a surprise to the other team members, although with Naruto making sure his dad was still there with him and hauled him along made sure of that. Naruto smiled as they greeted and left the main gates. He couldn't believe that he was actually on a real mission for once, and it was outside of the village. He couldn't wait to see some of the sights and to see how he would do in actual combat. It was going to be awesome and he couldn't wait to get back and tell all his friends about it as well. He was walking with his two teammates with his dad in the back reading his book as they made their way to the border. "Hey Dad, do you think we can get some training in while we're on this mission?" Naruto asked him. Maybe if we got time for it," Kakashi said, thinking about it. "Can you teach us some new moves? I mean, the taijutsu stuff so far has been cool, and yeah, you keep having us tree climb and stuff, but how about something cool? I mean, I got shadow clones, but I don't got anything much else, and Sasuke has all those fire moves, and what about Sakura-chan?" Naruto asked him. Kakashi had been thinking on that for a bit, and although he had been giving his students in the basics and getting their stamina, speed, strength and chakra up, he had also been working on their fighting styles. Sasuke of course used his intercepting fist style of his clan, but he had lots of holes in his style because no one could teach him. He guessed the young Uchiha was using old scrolls of his family to learn the style. Kakashi was familiar with the style and was helping him to develop it and give the boy pointers. Naruto, he had trained all his life in several styles to find what worked best for him. So far with the training with him, Guy and Anko gave him, and even Asuma had taught him how to use knives. The boy was developing his own style. It wasn't complete or had a name to it, but it fit his styles as it used speed, agility and had a few powerful hits to them, but its major strength was that it was unpredictable like his son. Sakura, however, needed the most work. The girl had some power in her hits, as Naruto could attest, when she really wanted to. But she only had basic style from the academy, although she had picked up a few things over the years from her group of friends, but he really needed to work on her. Her chakra control was nothing short of amazing, but her reserves were way too low in his opinion. Which was why he had her do tree climbing daily to get those reserves up. "So what kind of things will you be teaching up Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked the masked man. She was starting to get a little eager with what to learn, plus she had finally gotten used to the damn weights on her ankles and wrists as well. Climbing those trees was something she was sick of doing, and she was worried that she would be left behind. She had no jutsus of her own other than academy stuff, and she didn't want to be the weak link of the team. "Yeah, come on Dad, what's up?" Naruto asked eagerly. Sasuke gave a small grunt. "We should be getting stronger, and most of what we've done has been useless, at least to me." "Or shut it, you always say things like that, but you didn't know tree walking, did you? And that's important skill to have," Naruto said with his arms behind his head. Sasuke gave a small grunt that meant that he gave that to him but didn't have to say it out loud as his pride wouldn't let him. "All I'm saying is that we need more training. How are we supposed to become strong if we just stick with things like this?" "There are different ways to be strong, Sasuke," Kakashi told him as the three genin looked back at him. "You can be strong in character, will, spirit, heart, or just plain brute force. There are many ways, and in a fight it's not always who has the best jutsus or skills. Sometimes it comes down to luck or something basic. Every battle is different, and so it's best not to focus on mainly one point. Take the three of you, each of you has strengths and weaknesses, but none of you have the same weaknesses. That's why you're put into a team. You help make each other stronger than you are as a whole." Naruto and Sakura both nodded, but Sasuke wasn't that impressed. He needed to kill Itachi himself to revenge his clan. When he found his brother, he would need to be able to fight him one-on-one, and already he knew that he had a lot of catching up to do. His brother was already a jonin by this time, while he was just still a genin. He needed to get stronger a lot more quickly than he had up to this point, so whatever training he could get he would take. On missions he would do his best with his team, but he was an Avenger and he needed to remember Itachi's words. He needed to hate and use that to motivate himself to new heights. Eventually, when they got far enough, Kakashi decided to take to the trees. It would help build him up, plus with being able to climb up trees with chakra would make it easy enough. Plus it allowed him to see how they did physically as well. Naruto he knew had inhuman stamina, so he wouldn't have to worry too much. Sasuke was above average, of course. He was looking at Sakura the most to see how she was doing. With all the tree climbing and running and other things, he was trying to make her into a better ninja physically. If she wasn't, then teaching her any techniques would be pointless since she wouldn't have the stamina to use most. He did, however, have a few items on him for training, but he would have to see how they did by nightfall to see how they had progressed. So he watched as he put them through their paces. They traveled up north through a few forests. He noticed that Naruto was disappointed in not seeing anything other than trees, making comments such as that they had trees back home. Sakura was trying to strike up conversations with Sasuke, who mainly ignored her. That caused Naruto to argue with him about ignoring a friend. It wasn't lost that he liked the girl too, although since the girl wasn't sure which boy was better, he had seen this happen before. The two would argue and Sakura was trying to be peacemaker between them both. Kakashi sighed as he remembered his own childhood, as Obito and him were just the same and poor Rin was in Sakura's role. When they finally reached the border, he had them start their patrol after a small lunch break. When they had a few hours of daylight left, he decided break for camp. Naruto with his shadow clones set up the tents, while Sakura made a fire pit and Sasuke went for firewood. By the end of everything, he had to admit everyone had done well, so he guessed he could at least try and give in some training. He smiled as he thought of something that could help test, train them and give him a few hours to enjoy his book. Alright, good job for you three, and as promised I'm giving you three something new to study. He heard a groan from Naruto but ignored that. He pulled out 3 scrolls and tossed one to each of them. Sakura, I think you'll be perfect for Genjutsu, so this scroll contains a few of them that you should be able to do with some practice. But how will I practice it? She asked them. Kakashi smiled at her. Well, that's what you got teammates for, isn't it? The other boys looked slightly nervous, while Naruto did, as he was horrible with Genjutsu and was always worried he might never get out of them. Sasuke didn't show it, but he didn't like the idea of being used as a lab rat. Sasuke opened up his scroll to see 2 new fire Eustace, and her smirked fire was something he was good with, so this would help. Naruto looked at his and found something called air armor and wind slash. He couldn't wait to start practicing them right away, as thoughts of him using kick-ass wind moves. He remembered how Hinata said he had wind affinity and it was a good thing his dad gave him this. He frowned remembering that night with the scroll and that one wind technique that he found. Unfortunately, he couldn't remember the name or much about it by now. He had so much to do, he mentally cursed himself for that. He remembered a bit, and maybe after he mastered this he could ask his dad if he knew that move and he could learn it. From what he remembered, it was something about having a condensed power of air in your hand. He also remembered because it was wind, it had a tendency to shred up a hand of someone that didn't learn it properly. There is one more thing I would like you three to try, Kakashi said as he pulled out a scroll and unsealed the contents. From it a bunch of small hand-held balloons appeared as he tossed one to each of them. What's up with this, Dad? Naruto asked. Easy, it's a little training exercise that my sensei made me pass in order to master a move of his. This led for me to learn my own original move as well as learn it, so I wanted to see how you three handle it. The objective is to pop the balloon. Kakashi then saw Naruto going for a kunai in his equipment pouch on his leg. Not like that, Kakashi said quickly as Naruto froze just about to take out the weapon. Kakashi sighed and sometimes wondered what his son was thinking at times. You have to break it with your chakra like this. Kakashi held up one of the balloons and they watched as within a second it exploded from the inside. Everyone looked at theirs and started to concentrate on using their chakra to get it to pop. Kakashi chuckled as he saw their frustrated looks, so he sat back against a tree and read his book as they worked hard on it. He wasn't sure if it was a good idea to get them to try shape manipulation with chakra, but it would keep them busy for a while, besides it would help them in the future. After about an hour of no one getting it, he told them to stop for the moment and start studying their scrolls. He didn't want them to spend the entire time on just one thing. Meanwhile, across the forest, hidden behind a genjutsu, a lone ninja was watching them. She was a young female of about in her early 20s looking at them through a spyglass. She was covered in clothing of a dark green robe with long sleeves. Her long dark hair went down her back and she had on a large straw traveling hat that hid her face. She was looking at the ninja group and was trying to see which village they were from, although given that she was in fire country it was a good bet that they were leaf ninja, but she was just trying to make sure. She watched them before the tall one had the kids go to their tents while he took first watch. She closed down her spyglass as she figured she would wait until the shift change and then make a move. That way she ran a risk of not being seen just in case. Bandit camp. The bandits were currently in their camp for the night. They never stayed in the same area twice, as it was a way they stayed ahead of anyone on their trails. The men were mostly just basic bandits that had been gathered by their leader and his lieutenants, who were actually ninjas. Well, they were actually ex-ninjas from the way they didn't have any symbols of where they were from, but they had ninja gear and the skills. It was common to see ninjas that had either ran away from their village going rogue or maybe had even been kicked out. They had no idea what village they were from, although there were rumors and of course the few bets. Good money was on the Mist village as they had a high number of ninjas that went rogue for good reasons. Some said Rock, others Cloud and a few Sooner, but no one knew for sure. Even their leader never used his real name, which made him think that he was a missing nin trying to hide from hunter nins looking for his head for whatever bounty was on it. They only knew him as Scar from the scars on his face and the missing eye he had as well. The camp held a few fire pits as the men gathered around them drinking and having a good time with their successes. They were a ragtag group, their clothing slightly tattered from overuse and slightly scruffy from long-term living in the wilds of the forests, but they were strong and in good health. They all carried various weapons and the camp had set up tents all around the area as well as a few carts to hold their supplies and whatever they had stolen up to that point. So far they were looking for a place to have as a base so they could have somewhere to put everything safely. In the main tent we find the leader Scar looking at a map on the dirt ground with his lieutenants. Although they called him Scar, his real name had once been Akira of the Cloud Village. But that was years ago before his shame. It all went wrong on that damn mission to the Leaf Village when he had tried to steal that Hyuga girl. Things had been going so well up to that point when he showed up. It had looked like a boy, but he knew that it wasn't a boy but a demon in a boy's clothing. The red chakra and the evil that came off it, he knew what the thing had been. He still had the injuries from that night like the scars on his face, and still he ached when it rained in certain areas. That demon boy had been his downfall. When he had been taken back to the village they asked him over and over again who had done this to him, and every time he told them the truth. He wanted to warn his village that the Leaf Ninjas had a new ace up their sleeve, only it wasn't the famed yellow flash but a new weapon to use against them. He told them about the boy and said that they should kill it before it got too old to be used against them. But they didn't listen. No one believed his story and many thought that he had lost his mind. As he healed he knew that his reputation was over, that no one would hire him and his village would see him as an embarrassment. Then of course he heard about their own demon girl, and things started to make sense. The girl was older but she had to be like the boy, and that made her a danger to the village. So he gathered up a few ninja that thought the same way and had tried to ride their village of her, but they had failed. The girl had lived and they had to go on the run as missing nins. He never used his real name anymore and his lieutenants had chosen new names for themselves as well. He never did understand how things had gone this way. If they had their own demon girl, then why hadn't they believed him about the boy? Why did they keep the girl? Didn't they know she was a danger to them all? There were many theories. Maybe they hadn't believed that the Leaf Village would go so far to create a weapon like they had with the girl. Maybe they were going to use the boy to test their own weapon one day. Maybe they thought that just because it had been a young boy, not even a genin that he claimed defeated him, that none took his words seriously. In the end he came up with only one answer, and that was that none of it mattered. It was the past and none of that mattered. All that mattered was the future. The flat to his tent opened and one of his trusted lieutenants came in. He was a large man with a shaved head and wore plate mail-like samurai armor, who had a huge war hammer on his back. The man went by the name of Bear now, which was just how many saw him. Anything new to report? Scar asked him. Sparrow has found a group of ninja in the area, Bear reported to him. Reports so far is that it's a team from Konoha. Strength: 3 genins and a jonin by the looks of it. Scar nodded his head. The jonin might be trouble, but a few genin wouldn't be very difficult. They could swarm the jonin and let the bandits handle the kids. Although when he asked who the jonin was, Bear said that Sparrow didn't get a good look at them as she had used a spyglass to see them and not to be noticed. It was too bad about that, but he figured this would happen sooner or later, so it was best to take out this team and then move on. Maybe go into grass country or maybe rice, although he had heard rumors of that new village in that area, but they couldn't be that much trouble if they were new. Prepare the others, we'll attack as soon as we figure out where they are headed and get an ambush, he ordered, and Bear nodded his head to get the others ready. Scar looked at his map as he started to think about where to go next, because as soon as this team was dealt with they would send another team, only this time would be most likely Chunin and above. They could handle this group, but something like that would give them a lot of trouble, and they couldn't move because that genin team might actually keep track of them, and if they were going to move they couldn't leave a trail or let anyone know where they were headed. So they would have to take them out and then leave before the team was listed as missing. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.